We have all heard the expression, "Our children are the next generation." This statement seems rather trivial and obvious on a surface level. However, one would assume that the implied meaning behind this phrase is that the next generation is destined to expand upon the pursuits of the original one, to improve the world in some manner. As often as this saying is used, though, we rarely receive proposals as to just how our youth are expected to accomplish this task. Well, perhaps it must begin with the child in question. Research from Crocker indicates that children with low self-worth tend to perform poorly in the classroom, lash out for negative attention, or even sink into seclusion and abandon social interaction. In addition, students that have not established a concrete sense of a moral code, backed by a strong self-efficacy, are more susceptible to give in to conformity, whether good or bad. These individuals are more at risk for making detrimental choices further into adulthood. According to the research of Albert Bandura in 1986, self-efficacy is defined as a scholarly version of the wisdom behind the power of positive thinking. Based on the research of Bandura and others, self-efficacy is further defined as an optimistic belief in our own competence and effectiveness that pays dividends. In an observational study, Bandura, along with Maddox and Goslin in 2003, gathered that adults and children with strong feelings of self-efficacy are less anxious, more persistent, and less depressed. In another study led by Bandura in 2004, the power of positive thinking is interpreted as self-efficacy being fed by social persuasion. For example, a teacher or friend that may tell a student, "You have what it takes to succeed," is combined with one's own drive to compilate the makings of building one's sense of self-worth. However, it is pertinent that the right balance be found in order to account for success in the classroom. For instance, a study done by Campbell and others in 2002 concluded that an inflated sense of self drifted into the category of narcissism, which is counterproductive. It is the research conducted by Crocker and Laura Park, though, in 2004 at the University of Michigan that exposes what the true motivations of self-efficacy should be. They indicated that those who pursue self-worth via beauty and/or popularity tended to lose sight of what makes a quality of life. In addition, these students are more at risk for alcohol abuse and eating disorders later into adulthood. In contrast, students that base their self-concept on internal virtues such as kindness, intelligence, and compassion tended to exhibit much healthier behaviors later on in life. What then is our solution? My theory involves going to the root of the problem. It appears that a domino effect will transpire if self-esteem building workshops are implemented into the elementary educational system. For example, if a student feels that his or her teacher holds him or her to a higher standard, he or she will be more likely to hold themselves accountable for upholding that standard and will be rewarded with a sense of self-gratification if they succeed in doing this. Whether it be completing a homework assignment in advance or cleaning up a workstation without being told, the student will improve their own work ethic and enhance the overall classroom experience for all of the other students. What would these workshops look like, though? Well, 2 different methods could be incorporated at the same time to maximize the chances of success. The first method involves a group-based type of seminar. At most elementary schools, students are allotted an elective course, primarily physical education, music, and/or art, that the entire class attends once a week. Perhaps every other week, a group seminar could take the place of one of these scheduled events. The instructor that would have presided over the class, i.e. the art, music, or PE teacher, could still oversee the class in order to avoid a deduction in pay. In this scenario, the school's guidance counselors would set up a classroom and speak to the students as a unit about different elements of building self-worth each time. These elements may include strategies to reassess stressful situations, motivational sayings for the students to recite to themselves every morning, etc. To keep the students engaged, an element of fun will be incorporated. For instance, the class may begin with a funny video that still has relevance to the topic of discussion, or perhaps a game or group activity of some sort could be utilized, such as Twister or Catchphrase, to enhance the group interaction and teamwork. Children tend to respond to guidance better from someone they feel a connection to, so bonding with the counselors will be a necessity. In addition to the group seminar, the designated teachers for the grade will want to schedule one-on-one sessions with each student. This aspect of the workshop is imperative because teachers have the capacity to create the most impact in the mentality of the child. To assure that this activity does not interfere with the student's learning time, though, one student will be pulled out of the scheduled recess time per day to meet with his or her teacher. Meanwhile, another teacher's assistant will supervise the rest of the class. In the classroom, the teacher will discuss the week's assignment with his or her student and give constructive criticism to improve the student's performance. This will be followed by a short lecture pertaining to confidence-boosting mechanisms that the student may wish to incorporate into his or her day-to-day lives. The meeting would be brief, perhaps no longer than 10 minutes, so that the child may enjoy the rest of his or her recreational time. However, if this tactic is implemented throughout the school year, a steady increase in performance should be expected. So, in a mathematical breakdown, the teacher will meet with a different student every day for 10 minutes of counseling. Given that the average class size is 20 students and there are 5 days in a school week, the teacher will need approximately 1 month to have met with every student. From this point, the cycle would repeat itself until the end of the school year. The result entails more active participation in classroom discussion, less anxiety about asking questions, more frequent and accurate completion of homework assignments, and an overall improvement in standardized test scores. This is where the stakeholders come into play. The majority of school boards receive their funding for academic programs, architectural improvements, and staff funding as a result of the ranking of the school's overall performance. What does this mean? Test scores. Assuming that the workshops are successful, test scores are expected to be exponentially higher. In addition, teachers would receive a much-deserved salary increase as they would need to undergo much more training in order to successfully counsel the students. This training would include several courses in psychology and at least 1 week of field experience in addition to the state-mandated educational curriculum that the teachers are expected to undergo. Guidance counselors, too, would gain more credibility with the school system as their intended jobs will actually be put to good use. Even board game companies such as the makers of Twisters and Catchphrase may want to invest in these programs and gain recognition for sponsoring the mental well-being of youth across the United States. Finally, parents would opt for the schools with the highest ratings and thus send their children and their funding towards that particular institution. The overall outcome spans farther than just the student's performance in elementary school, though. Holding oneself in higher regard will improve the child's decision-making skills in the classroom, but more so into adolescence and adulthood as well. Conformity is a serious threat to many young people as it influences the way that they process their own moral code. For instance, Hal and Sandy are playing with toy cars during recess, and their teacher instructs them to put the toys away. Sandy moves to do so, but she sees Hal hide the toy car in his pocket. She is tempted to do the same. However, Sandy has met with her teacher for counseling this week and knows that she admires her good nature. Sandy has begun to admire that in herself as well. Thus, she does what she is told without any further hesitation. Fast forward several years and expand this concept to perhaps stealing an actual car, and Sandy will still be more inclined to do the right thing as she has undergone extensive workshops in school to help her define her moral code and resist conformity. Unfortunately, no plan is perfect. There are several drawbacks and obstacles that stand in the way of this program's success. To begin, some counties, such as Duval, do not even include a recess into their course schedules. Therefore, any counseling would distract from class time for these particular locations. However, the counties that do allot for recess may not want to take away from the child's recreational time, as it helps them exude energy that would otherwise be used to distract from the rest of the class's learning. Pertaining to the group seminar, there may be an extensive amount of rebuttal from the elective teachers, as this is their primary job with the school. Guidance counselors, too, may not want to participate in these activities. Therefore, new staff would have to be hired with the potential of the old staff to be let go. In conclusion, parents may object to the workshop altogether because there is no former evidence of this experiment resulting in success. People tend to fear the unknown, especially when it pertains to their children. However, anything worth recognition in history was achieved through trial and error, so one could argue that this social experiment is still worth pursuing. I'm Sydney Smith. Thank you very much.